The massive warship drifted silently through the void, its hulking form barely visible against the backdrop of endless stars. Grand Admiral Vexer of the Tsarian Empire tilted his elongated head, all four eyes narrowed in calculation as the holographic display showed the derelict vessel in all its terrifying glory. "Primitive," he scoffed, mandibles clicking with amusement. "Look at the crude armor plating, the inefficient thruster configuration. It's a wonder it made it this far into deep space." His second-in-command, Commander Rylix, flicked her sensory tendrils in agreement. "Our scans indicate it's at least several hundred cycles old. The technology is quaint." The bridge of the Tsarian flagship Eternal Dominance filled with chittering laughter. The Tsarians had conquered 17 star systems in the past decade alone, their bioengineered bodies and quantum weaponry making them the undisputed masters of this sector of the galaxy. Finding an ancient warship from an unknown species was merely an amusing curiosity. "Prepare a boarding party," Vexer commanded. "I want to know who built this relic before we salvage it for parts." 6 hours later, the boarding party transmitted their first images from inside the derelict. The vessel's interior was surprisingly intact, corridors lined with strange markings, control rooms with seats designed for bipedal creatures of modest stature. "How small they must have been," Rylix remarked, gesturing at the dimensions displayed on their screens. "Barely larger than nutrient processors." Science Officer Kazavik approached with a data tablet. "Admiral, we've analyzed the ship's markings. They appear to be from a species called humans." Vexer's mandibles clicked faster in increased amusement. "Humans? Never heard of them. Another extinct race that couldn't evolve quickly enough, no doubt." "That's the peculiar thing, sir," Kazavik continued. "According to the ship's log, which Lieutenant Nex partially decoded, this vessel is called the UES Harbinger. It was some kind of experimental deep space patrol craft. But what's strange is—" "Speak plainly, Kazavik." "The ship's log indicates it was sent from a place called Earth nearly 3 centuries ago. But our stellar database has no record of such a planet or these humans." Vexer's upper eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of dismissal. "Then they were obviously unimportant. A species that built a warship this primitive couldn't possibly have survived the galactic emergence period." The doors to the bridge hissed open, and Lieutenant Nex burst in, his usual military composure completely abandoned. His exoskeleton had paled to a sickly blue. "Admiral," he gasped, "we found something in the ship's central vault. A containment chamber with beings in stasis." "The crew survived?" Vexer asked, suddenly interested. "No, sir. These aren't crew members. They're something else. And they're waking up." As if on cue, the lights throughout the Tsarian flagship flickered, and a low, unfamiliar hum began to vibrate through the hull. "What was that?" Rylix demanded. Science Officer Kazavik's eyes widened as he stared at his console. "Admiral, the derelict ship has just activated its defensive systems and it's transmitting a signal." "Block it," Vexer commanded. "Too late, sir," Kazavik whispered. "The signal has already been sent. Its destination is unknown." In the silent void between stars, something ancient stirred in response. The stasis pods aboard the UES Harbinger opened with a pneumatic hiss, releasing clouds of cryogenic vapor into the musty air. 3 bipedal figures emerged slowly, their forms obscured by the dissipating mist. Lieutenant Nex and his boarding team backed away, weapons trained on the awakening entities. The smallest of the 3 stepped forward first, a being with pale skin and 2 eyes barely reaching the chest height of the Tsarians. "Human," the creature identified itself, voice hoarse from centuries of disuse. "My name is Captain Ilara Frost of Earth's Vanguard Initiative." The universal translator in Nex's armor processed the sounds, and he felt his exoskeleton tighten with instinctive alarm. The being's stance was too confident for its small stature. "Your vessel has been claimed by the Tsarian Empire," Nex declared. "You will submit to questioning about your origins and purpose." The other two humans had now fully emerged, one with skin the color of copper and one with skin like the darkness of space itself. All three wore form-fitting garments of deep blue with strange symbols on their shoulders. "I'm afraid that won't be possible," Captain Frost replied calmly. "This vessel was designed as a first contact failsafe. If you've awakened us, it means you've triggered Protocol Lazarus." Before Nex could respond, the ship's interior lighting shifted from dim emergency red to full illumination. Display panels that had appeared dead for centuries suddenly glowed with life. "What's happening?" Nex demanded, his weapon wavering between the three humans. The dark-skinned human, taller than Frost but still diminutive by Zarian standards, spoke next. "I am Commander Orion Makari, weapons specialist. This vessel has recognized your boarding as a hostile action and has initiated defensive protocols." "Impossible," Nex chittered. "Our scans showed this ship was dormant, primitive technology." Fawcett, third human with copper skin and eyes like amber, smiled thinly. "Major Kaida Zhao, tactical officer. What you scanned was precisely what we wanted you to scan." Aboard the Eternal Dominance, Admiral Vexer watched with growing unease as the power. Signatures from the human vessel suddenly spiked exponentially. "Sir," Rylix reported, "the derelict is now generating energy readings that exceed our sensor capacity. And something is happening to its structure." On the view screen, the supposedly primitive warship began to change. Armor plates shifted, rearranged and transformed as what appeared to be dormant systems activated throughout the vessel. What had seemed like an outdated hull was actually a sophisticated metamaterial, now revealing weapon ports, advanced sensor arrays, and propulsion systems unlike anything in the Zarian technical database. "That's not possible, Science Officer," Gzavik whispered. "The materials science alone would require—" "Evacuation order!" Vexer commanded. "Get our boarding party out now!" But on the human vessel, Captain Frost raised a small device. "I'm sorry, but we can't allow that. Your ship's technological signature has been identified as hostile to human interests." She pressed a button, and throughout the Harbinger, quantum entanglement circuits that had lain dormant for centuries, synchronized with 1,000 hidden satellites scattered throughout this sector of space. Seeds planted long ago, waiting for this moment. Across the vast distances of the void, something answered. The response came not as a fleet of warships or a barrage of weapons fire, but as a simple message that appeared simultaneously across every system on the Zarian flagship. "Guardian Protocol activated. Stand by for verification." Admiral Vexor stared at the unfamiliar script as it transformed into Zarian glyphs before his eyes. "What is this? How are they accessing our secure systems?" Science Officer Kazavik worked frantically at his station. "It's not just accessing our systems, Admiral. It's rewriting them. I've never seen code like this. It's evolving as I watch." On the bridge view screen, the Harbinger continued its metamorphosis. What had appeared as a clumsy, outdated hull was now clearly revealed as an advanced stealth system. The warship's true form emerged. Sleek, dangerous, with weapon systems that defied Zarian understanding. "Admiral," Commander Rylix interrupted, her voice uncharacteristically shaken. "Long-range sensors are detecting something." The view screen shifted to show the surrounding space. At first, there was nothing unusual, just the eternal void and distant stars. Then, one by one, objects began to appear, shimmering into existence as if stepping through invisible doorways. Ships, hundreds of them, thousands. "Impossible," Vexer whispered. "There's no way they could have hidden a fleet this size." The first vessel to fully materialize dwarfed even the Zarian flagship. Its design echoed the now transformed Harbinger, but on a scale that suggested the smaller ship was merely a scout. Behind it came vessels of various sizes and configurations, all bearing the same markings as the Harbinger. "Sir," Kazavic reported, "these ships are appearing throughout the sector. They're everywhere." Aboard the Harbinger, Captain Frost observed the Tsarian lieutenant's mandibles trembling in shock. "You don't understand what you've done," she said softly. The Harbinger wasn't abandoned. It was waiting. "Waiting for what?" Lieutenant Nex demanded. Major Zhao stepped forward. "For someone like you to find it. This ship is a sentinel. One of thousands we placed throughout the galaxy centuries ago. But our records have no mention of humans or Earth," Nex protested. "Your species can't be advanced enough for this technology. It's impossible." Commander Makari laughed, a sound that sent chills through the Tsarian boarding party. "You don't find humans in your records because we didn't want to be found, not until we were ready." On the view screen within the Harbinger's newly activated command center, the massive human vessels continued to materialize. From each ship, smaller craft were now deploying, thousands of them, moving with impossible precision. Centuries ago, Captain Frost explained, humanity faced a choice: reveal ourselves to the galaxy or wait until we were prepared for whatever we might encounter. We chose patience. The largest of the newly arrived ships broadcast a message that echoed through both vessels. "This is Admiral Orestes Venner of the Earth Defense Force. Unidentified vessels, you have awakened a Harbinger-class Sentinel and triggered Guardian. Protocol! Stand down immediately!" The Tsarian High Command gathered in emergency session, their compound eyes fixed on the holographic display of the human armada now surrounding their fleet. Admiral Vexor stood before his peers, mandibles tight, with humiliation. "They've paralyzed our ships with some form of quantum interference," he reported. "Our weapons systems are offline, our communications limited to channels they allow, and yet they haven't fired a single shot." High Commander Drax, eldest of the Tsarian Military Council, leaned forward. "How could such a force remain hidden? We've mapped this entire sector." "They claim to have developed something called dimensional folding centuries ago," Vexor replied. "Their fleet wasn't hiding behind stealth technology. It existed in a partially phased state, invisible to conventional sensors." The council chamber filled with the clicking sounds of agitated mandibles. "And what do these humans want?" Drax demanded. Before Vexor could answer, the holographic display shifted. The council gasped as a human figure appeared before them. Captain Frost, now dressed in a formal black uniform adorned with unfamiliar insignia. "Greetings, Tsarian High Council," she said. "I apologize for this intrusion, but it seemed more efficient than relaying messages through Admiral Vexor." "How dare you breach our secure chambers?" Drax chittered furiously. Frost smiled politely. "Your security is impressive for technologies known to this region of space. However, we've had centuries to develop beyond such limitations." She gestured, and the hologram expanded to show a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with thousands of points illuminated across its spiral arms. "Each light represents a Harbinger-class Sentinel," she explained. "We deployed them throughout the galaxy while Earth remained hidden. They've been gathering intelligence, monitoring developing civilizations, and waiting." "Waiting for what?" another council member demanded. "For someone to discover them," Frost replied simply. "You see, we didn't want to prejudge any species we might encounter. The Sentinels were our way of evaluating first contact scenarios." Science Officer Kazavic, standing behind Vexor, suddenly understood. "It was a test," he whispered. "And we failed." Frost turned her gaze to him. "Not failed precisely, but your immediate impulse to claim our vessel, your dismissal of its creators as primitive or extinct, these reactions have been noted." "Are you declaring war on the Tsarian Empire?" Drax demanded, rising to his full height. "Quite the opposite," Frost replied. "Humanity has no interest in conquest. We've spent centuries building, learning, and preparing, not for war, but for peaceful coexistence. However, her voice hardened slightly, we will not tolerate aggression against ourselves or species under our protection. The map shifted again, highlighting 17 star systems, the very ones the Zarians had conquered in recent decades. These conquered worlds, Frost continued, many with pre-spaceflight civilizations that you've subjugated or worse, they are of particular concern to us. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Vexer felt something unfamiliar crawl through his exoskeleton. Not just fear, but the dawning realization that the galaxy was suddenly a very different place than he had understood it to be. 376 years ago, Admiral Venner explained to the assembled Zarian leadership, Earth was visited by an aggressive alien species. The human admiral stood calmly before the council, his weathered face projected as a hologram in the center of the chamber. Unlike Captain Frost, he appeared older, with silver hair and lines etched deeply around his eyes. These visitors, whom we know only as the precursors, arrived without warning and attempted to conquer our planet, Venner continued. They nearly succeeded. Millions died before we managed to drive them back. The display shifted to show ancient footage, primitive, by Zarian standards, of massive ships hovering over smoking human cities. The Zarians watched silently as human defenders fought desperately against technology far beyond their own. We were unprepared, Venner said softly, outmatched in every way. But humans have always possessed one trait above all others: adaptability. The footage changed, showing human scientists working frantically with recovered alien technology, reverse engineering weapons and defenses. Within months, we had adapted their technology. Within years, we had improved upon it. When they returned, for a second invasion, they found not the primitive beings they'd nearly conquered, but a transformed species ready to fight for its survival. High Commander Drax shifted uncomfortably. And you defeated these precursors? We did more than defeat them, Venner replied. We followed them back to their staging area, a refueling station on the edge of our solar system. There, we discovered something that changed humanity forever. The hologram shifted again, displaying an intricate star map unlike anything that Zarians had seen before. The precursors had been conquering and harvesting worlds across multiple galaxies, Venner explained. They weren't just one invading force. They were scouts for something far larger. And according to their records, they had been doing this for millions of years. Science Officer Xavik leaned forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. What were they harvesting? Life, Frost answered, stepping forward to join Venner's hologram. Specifically, sentient life that had reached a certain developmental threshold but hadn't yet achieved interstellar capability. Earth had just crossed that threshold when they arrived. The discovery changed everything for us, Venner continued. We realized that announcing our presence to the galaxy would draw attention, not just from any remnants of the precursors, but potentially from other threats. So humanity made a collective decision. To hide, Vexer stated. To prepare, Frost corrected. We developed the dimensional folding technology from concepts found in the precursor database. We built hidden stations throughout the galaxy. We deployed the Harbinger-class Sentinels. And we watched and learned and grew, not just technologically, but ethically. We wanted to be ready when we finally revealed ourselves to the galactic community. Commander Rylix, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. And our discovery of your Sentinel triggered this revelation? Venner nodded. Your Empire's expansion pattern matched certain concerning criteria. The Harbinger you discovered was specifically positioned to monitor this region due to its high concentration of developing civilizations. What happens now? Drax asked, his usual imperious tone noticeably subdued. Frost smiled, a gesture the Zarians were beginning to recognize as significant among humans. Now we talk. about the 17 worlds you've conquered, about your place in a galaxy that is suddenly much larger and more complex than you realized, about your future as neighbors to humanity. Admiral Vexer stood on the observation deck of the human flagship Prometheus, watching as shuttles traveled between the massive vessel and the Xarian command ship. 3 weeks had passed since the revelation of humanity's presence, and the initial shock had given way to intense diplomatic negotiations. "It's remarkable how quickly your people adapt," noted a voice behind him. Vexer turned to find Captain Frost approaching, her small form moving with the peculiar grace that humans possessed. "We Tsarians pride ourselves on strategic flexibility," Vexer responded, his mandibles clicking in what humans had come to recognize as wry amusement. "Though I admit, nothing in our military doctrine covered encountering a species that had been silently watching the galaxy for centuries." Frost joined him at the viewport. Beyond the assembled ships, the stars shimmered, each one now potentially harboring human outposts or sentinels. "The treaty will be finalized tomorrow," she said. "Your council has been surprisingly reasonable." "Reasonableness is the logical response when facing a vastly superior force," Vexer replied dryly. Frost shook her head. "It's not about superior force, Admiral. If that were true, we would have simply conquered you as you conquered others." "Then what is it about?" "Evolution," she answered. "Not just biological, but cultural. When the precursors attacked Earth, we could have become like them once we developed the technology to fight back. Vengeful, expansionist, destructive. Many humans wanted exactly that." The viewport display shifted, showing images of Earth. AI, blue-green world with sprawling cities that somehow managed to coexist with vast natural landscapes. "Instead," Frost continued, "our brush with extinction taught us something precious, the importance of allowing species to develop in their own way, at their own pace. Our Harbinger program wasn't just a defense system. It was a way of protecting other worlds from experiencing what we experienced." Vexer's upper eyes blinked in sequence as he processed this. "And now you ask us to do the same, to withdraw from the worlds we've conquered." "Not immediately," Frost clarified. "That would cause more harm than good. But gradually, yes, with human assistance and oversight." The treaty terms had been clear. The Xarian Empire would remain intact, but their expansion would cease. The 17 conquered worlds would transition to self-governance over time, with both human and Xarian advisors guiding the process. "There are those among my people who resist this change," Vexor admitted, "who see your interference as weakness. On our part?" "There always are," Frost replied. "Just as there were humans who wanted to use our technology to dominate rather than protect. The difference is in which voices a civilization chooses to listen to." The observation deck door slid open, admitting Commander Makari and Science Officer Xavik. The human and Xarian had been working together to integrate compatible technologies, a process that had revealed surprising commonalities in their scientific approaches. "The implementation plan for the Eurydian system is complete," Makari reported. "Their pre-industrial civilization can be transitioned from Xarian oversight within 5 years, with minimal cultural disruption." Xavik's sensory tendrils quivered with excitement. A gesture Frost had learned indicated intellectual stimulation. "And the human dimensional mathematics are remarkable. With slight modifications, they could be compatible with our quantum navigation systems." Vexer observed the unlikely pair, the small human and the insectoid Xarian, working together with unexpected synergy. It was, he realized, emblematic of the new reality they all faced. "You know," Frost said quietly to Vexer, "when we first designed the Harbinger program, we anticipated many possible outcomes when they were discovered. War was one. Peaceful contact was another. But what we hoped for most was this: the opportunity to help other species avoid the mistakes we made, and that were made against us." Outside the viewport, A new ship emerged from dimensional fold. Another, human vessel, even larger than the Prometheus. Its arrival heralded the beginning of what human leaders were calling the integration, humanity's formal entrance into galactic affairs. The laughter that had echoed through the Tsarian bridge when they first discovered the seemingly primitive warship was now a distant memory. In its place was something unexpected. Not terror, though that had certainly come in the moment of revelation, but something more profound, respect, and perhaps in time, understanding. As the new human vessel took its position among the assembled fleet, Admiral Vexer realized that the galaxy had not become smaller with humanity's emergence, but vastly, infinitely larger. And in that expansion of possibility lay not conquest, but connection. The universe, it seemed, had much yet to teach them all.